It's been 84 years.
But really, guys, it actually has been 84 years. On the 8th of January 1940, rationing was introduced to the British public for the first time during the Second World War. Hi everyone, my name's Jake. Welcome to the Kitchen Scrap, where I'm currently challenging myself to learn to survive on British World War II rations for an entire year.
Have you changed your pills?
So it's been 84 years. Now, when the rationing was first introduced, it was just bacon, ham, butter, and sugar to begin with, and then that list grew longer and longer. So to commemorate this occasion, I thought we should make what was possibly the most famous dish of the era, which was Lord Woolton's Pie. Now, Lord Woolton's real name was Frederick James Marquis, and he was the first Earl of Woolton, hence the name Lord Woolton. Now, he was a very successful English businessman who became a politician later in life, and in April of 1940, he was appointed as the Minister of Food. I can't even comprehend how stressful that job would have been, to feed the nation during one of the biggest, deadliest global conflicts the world had ever seen. It would have been very intense, to say the least. Now, the dish itself was actually created at the Savoy Hotel in London by a chap named Francis Latre. He named it after Lord Woolton. It was quickly adopted and promoted by the Ministry of Food as an economical way to help feed your family using basically whatever ingredients you could. Like any kind of soup, stew, pie, or curry, it's one of those recipes where you can just chuck whatever you have lying around in the fridge, and it's probably going to be great. Now, the original recipe can actually be found in this recipe book here.
Food facts for the kitchen front.
And it actually calls for 1 pound each of potato, swede, cauliflower, and carrot, just as a suggestion. Now, that makes a lot of pie, but keep in mind, this was meant to feed a large family or a small army, and it also likely would have been their main meal of the day. But it also calls for 3 or 4 spring onions, if possible, 1 teaspoonful of vegetable extract, and a tablespoon of oatmeal. Now, 1 teaspoonful of vegetable extract with that many vegetables, I don't imagine is going to do very much at all. Cook all together for 10 minutes with just enough water to cover. Stir occasionally to prevent the mixture from sticking. Allow to cool, then put in a pie dish and sprinkle with chopped parsley. Cover with a crust of potato or wholemeal pastry. We are definitely doing the pastry. I have been craving it. So a little side note here, I have never been on the Facebook train. Since its existence, I have been on it 3 times, including my current time, for a combined total of about 2 years. However, this time when I signed up, it was specifically to join some of these online groups that are doing rationing and, all about British food, this, that, and the other thing. So I've joined these groups and, I've introduced myself and explained what I'm doing this year, what the project is. And I have to say, the response has been overwhelmingly positive, which has been so lovely. Something I truly didn't expect was to actually meet people who were there. They remember being on the rations, and I've been interacting with some of them, and they're telling me some incredible stories about the age and what they did to get by, and even sharing recipes with me. Now, I met a chap named Chris in one of these groups, and he was born in London in 1945. He remembers his mother making him Lord Woolton Pie. Now, as a child, he didn't really like it that much. And Chris, I get it. Now, what I'm about to say might be a little controversial, but hear me out. I respect the pie, totally respect it. And I've made it many times throughout the years. I quite enjoy it. But it's all about that seasoning, because Lord Woolton's pie, as is, can be a little bland. With the proper seasoning though, and just, a little bit of tomato sauce, chef's kiss. It's fine. It's a fantastic, economical recipe and a really great way to have a large intake of vegetables as your main meal. Now, Chris went on to say that he would actually like to see Lord Woolton's pie made today because it is such a healthy recipe. And then he shared with me a recipe that his mother used to make him during the rationing period. So we're talking late 40s, early 50s, I'm guessing. Basically, it was a disc of pastry. Now, I clarified, it wasn't a tart shell or a pie shell, it was just a disc. She would then thinly slice some apples, lay them on top, sprinkle of sugar, bake it in the oven. She would then make up some bird's eye custard using water, not milk, save on the milk ration, and then she would pour that over the top of the dessert. And apparently the kids just used to demolish it in record time. So 2-for-1 bonus today. Chris, if you happen to be watching, this one's for you. We're going to make Lord Woolton's pie and we're going to make your mother's dessert. Also, I forgot to say, Chris actually went on to become a pastry chef. How awesome is that? So we're going to use the recommended combination of vegetables. We've got a pound of carrots, a pound of potatoes, a Swede. This is just slightly over 1 pound, and I've already chopped up a pound of cauliflower. So I'm just gonna get the rest of these veggies prepared and then we'll whack them on the stove. Okay, so I've just melted a tiny little bit of vegetable shortening and we're just going to add our vegetables. I forgot to show you that I chopped up 3 spring onions as well. So I'm just gonna chuck that all in here. Now it says with just enough water to cover them. They're only just covered at this point, but we are going to save this water because it's essentially just stock. And we are going to let this cook on medium-high for 10 minutes. And don't forget to save all of your kitchen scraps in your kitchen scrap freezer bag to make stock. Totally forgot to add the vegetable extract. I have more Promite than I do Vegemite, so we're just going to use this. It just says to add in, it said a teaspoon. It's kind of a teaspoon-ish.
Liar!
Just gonna push that through and give it a stir. It also calls for a tablespoon of oatmeal. Now I'm pretty sure they mean ground oatmeal, which I don't actually have. But I was just making some bread before and some of the oats fell off the top when I was getting them out of the tin, so it's not quite a tablespoon, but it'll do. In it goes. Okay, so the veggies have cooked for 10 minutes. I've actually drained the liquid out and I have definitely reserved it because now I have a good stock starter for the soup that I want to make tomorrow. So that will be lovely. Now these are still kind of firm, which is what you want because remember, we still have to bake this in the oven. Now, even though this is not technically part of the recipe, something extra that I always like to do whenever I make Lord Woolton pie, just to help boost the nutrients a little bit, I like to add some cooked lentils. Now, I allocated some of my points to get a pound of green lentils. I used 1.5 cups, so that's about 10 ounces or 280 grams. Now, if you were smart, you would have soaked them for a few hours prior or even better overnight, but I forgot, which meant that I had to cook them on the stove for about 30 minutes and I cooked them in salted water. So I'm just going to add these in because this is going to be my main meal for the day for, I don't know, maybe 4, maybe even 5 nights. So I want to get as much nutrients in there as I possibly can. This is going to be so yum. God damn son of a... I always spill something. Always. Done. So it's time to make the pastry and I thought I would kill 2 birds with 1 stone because I need to make a pastry base for the apple dessert. The recipe that we are going to be using comes from Marguerite Patton's book, Feeding the Nation, and it is for a wheatmeal pastry, and it reads, wheatmeal flour makes a very good pastry, but because it is a little bit heavier, you will need to add a small amount of baking powder to it. So this recipe calls for 8 ounces of wheatmeal flour, a pinch of salt, a teaspoon of baking powder, and 2 ounces of margarine with enough water to make it pliable so you can roll it. Because I need to make a little bit extra, I'm using a pound of wholemeal flour and 3 ounces of margarine. How extravagant does that seem? And we'll see how we go from there. Okay, so I've already measured out the flour, bit of salt, the baking powder, and the margarine. So I'm just going to start blending this margarine into the flour, lifting it up as I go to aerate it. There's something so satisfying about rubbing butter or margarine into flour. So basically just keep on doing this until it resembles breadcrumbs. Make sure you get all the lumps out of it. That feels okay. Now I'm just gonna gradually add some water to it. Just little by little until it comes together. So I just kept on adding water until it was a consistency that I liked, divided it into 2, so this one's going to be the base for our apple dessert, and this one will be the top of our pie, so just going to roll this out now. Now this is a big pie, so we need a lot of pastry. So the veggies have been cooked. I've mixed all the lentils through them and then put them into this baking dish here. Then we are supposed to layer it with some parsley. I have a lot of parsley, but that's okay. I love parsley. Also, side note, use your parsley stems as well because they're packed full of flavor and they will help to extend what parsley you do have. I know that looks like an insane amount of parsley, but it's really going to help with the flavor of this pie. Okay, so I have rolled out the lid, the pastry lid. Just gonna pop that on top. Just gonna go around and tuck it in slightly around the edges. I do want a little bit of excess, but not as much as I have here. Just gonna trim that off a little bit. Now I'm just going to go around and seal it. All right, so don't forget to put some holes in it so the steam from the vegetables when it's cooking can escape. We've got some excess pastry here, so I think it's time to get creative. There we go, a little bit of flourish and decoration with the leftover pastry so nothing went to waste. I'm not a pastry chef, so it'll do. You can brush this with a little bit of milk or an egg wash to make the pastry go a nice crispy golden brown. I can't spare the milk or the eggs, so I'm not going to worry about that. Now once again, we don't have any temperatures or timings to go by. The recipe says to just bake it in a hot oven until done. So I've got my oven on 200. I'm just going to cook this until I think the pastry is ready. All right, I've just pulled this baby out of the oven. I checked it at the 30-minute mark and the pastry didn't seem like it was quite done enough for my liking anyway. So I let it go for an extra 15 minutes, so 45 minutes for about 200-ish. I also just pan-fried half of a drumhead cabbage just with some salt and pepper. I'm gonna have that on the side with a bit of gravy. So dinner is served. I'm not sure how appetizing I can make this look considering what it is, but we're just going to pour some lovely gravy over our cabbage. And I'm now just going to sit down and enjoy this while I catch up on some YouTube. Okay, so I've rolled the other pastry out and I'm just using this tart pan just as the base. I didn't go up around the sides, but I feel like I should probably blind bake this, right? Just so the base doesn't go soggy when I cook the apples in it later. Chris didn't mention to do that, but I'm just gonna trust my intuition on this one. I'm just gonna whack some baking paper into that. I have some baking beads to weigh it down, but you could use anything really. Rice, not cooked obviously, uncooked dried lentils would work as well, and you can save them and reuse them, just don't consume them. Put them in to weigh it down. And I'm just gonna blind bake this for, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. So I've just blind baked this in the oven for 10 minutes just to help get it going. I have also peeled and sliced up 3 Granny Smith apples. He said that his mother used to use Bramley apples, but this is basically the same thing. They're kind of tart and sour. Granny Smith are really good for these types of desserts. And I guess we are just going to start layering the apple in the middle as best as we can. Something like that. All right, now I actually don't know how long I should bake this for, but I'm gonna guess about 15 minutes at 180 fan force, so we'll see how we go with this. I love apple desserts so much, so I am so excited to try this. Thank you so much again, Chris, for sharing your mother's recipe. I really appreciate it. Okay, so we ended up baking it for about 35 minutes. So I realized once I put it in the oven, I forgot to sprinkle the top with sugar, so I did that afterwards. It looks crisp, but they're actually still quite nice and soft and juicy. I just tried some. So I also made some custard using water instead of milk, because that's what Chris said his mother used to do. And I've just made a little bit. I mean, it tastes fine. It looks kind of like a lemon curd more than a custard. But yeah, taste-wise, it's pretty much exactly the same. I guess just not as creamy. So let's give this a go. So I've just cut a slice and put on some of the custard. That looks quite nice. I'm actually really excited to try this. Chris, I'm not sure if I've done this right, but I gave it a crack. All right, let's give this a go. That's nice. I like that. The apples are not too sweet at all. You get the sweetness from the custard mainly. It's got crunch, fresh fruit. It's not overpowering at all. I would make this again. That'll be gone by tomorrow. I'm glad I blind baked that pastry as well. Not that there's anything wrong with this at all, but I think if I make this again, what I would like to try is make a whole lot of custard with milk, pour it on the top of the apple tart, and then put it in the fridge to set. I think that would be delicious. Thank you very much for sharing your mother's recipe, Chris. I really do appreciate it. So thanks very much for watching, everyone. And also just want to say thank you so much for all of the support that I've been receiving. It has truly meant so much to me. Thank you for subscribing and liking the videos and commenting as well. I so enjoy reading all of your comments, and I've picked up a lot of handy tips along the way, which is fantastic. I do try to reply to each one, but forgive me if I do miss the odd one here and there. It's not intentional. But once again, thank you so much because it really does mean a lot to me. Mwah. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and until next time, keep calm and bake pies.